if you want to become yourself as an artist, you actually do have to kind of loop yourself up and outward from
Mm.
that subterranean self-creation. You have to go out of yourself at some point. And I do think, I'm getting pretty woo-woo mystical spiritual about this, but I do think when somebody
Our
like
audience love
when,
this. So, what's
one
your
one thing
ideal possible film, Sam? What's the best that this medium could possibly do? What's the best possible film?
I think if there's like an ideal film, I think it might just be The Red Shoes, man. Like it might just be Powell and
Yeah.
Pressburger. I mean, that feels like to me the moment at which cinema really realizes we can do everything
Mm.
with this. We can make everything that has ever been thought of in all the great high arts prior to this moment.
Solomon and Smith. Hello, you're about to watch a conversation between me, Milo, and Sam Jennings about the literary critic Harold Bloom and the anxiety of influence as it applies to cinema, to films, to movie films, as we call them here on Solomon and Smith. Sam is a writer of novels, of fiction, and poetry, but he pays the bills with Substack articles, lists, articles on movie films, but also on like pop music. Sam knows scary amounts about pop music. If you're unfamiliar with Harold Bloom and the Anxiety of Influence, it's a book that Bloom wrote in 3 days during the summer of love in a burst of extreme creativity. It's a completely mental read. The phrase anxiety of influence and the general concept can be summarized as that feeling that a young artist gets when he or she thinks about his or herself in relationship to the whole tradition of artists that went before them. You sit down and write a poem now. What's the point? Shakespeare. What's the point of writing it? You've got Milton. What? How do you even begin to write a poem nowadays, knowing that the Divine Comedy's out there? You're born in ridiculous debt. You're born kind of helpless. That's the general anxiety of influence thing. So filmmakers have been influencing filmmakers forever. Alfred Hitchcock learned how to make films by watching Fritz Lang films. But at some stage, and I think it's in the 90s, in the end of history era, it becomes almost impossible for an American filmmaker to make a film without feeling this unpleasant, overbearing, fatherly presence of all the previous great filmmakers that came before them. Thinking in particular of people like the Coen brothers, Quentin Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson, that generation of filmmakers who really grew up with access to everything, to all the movies of previous generations, and felt that freaky, horrifying, anxiety-inducing thing. If you like what me and Milo are doing on this channel, put your rare earth rocks and gold and like diamonds and rubies into our Patreon. The link is down below in the description and the pinned comment. Me and Milo love doing these chats. We think this is a kind of weird niche that doesn't really exist, and we'd love them to continue. So please, any support we'd be enormously grateful for. I'm just looking over here because I'm pouring my tea. A delicious cup of tea. Please also like this video, subscribe, leave a comment. It is genuinely helpful. And without further ado, Over to Sam. We start these chats, as you know, with a poetic epigraph. So I'll hand over to Milo, who's selected
Yeah,
something.
so
What
this
is it?
comes from Seneca's Oedipus, translated by Emily Wilson. Just felt appropriate. The hale old ferryman who rows the hordes in a roomy boat across the swollen river can scarcely lift his arms to raise the pole, too tired with the constant punting, always bringing new throngs.
Hmm.
I felt this was an appropriate idea given the constant reams of dead art that are being sent into the afterlife by this tired old ferryman. Meanwhile, we, the living, have to deal with what is left behind. And to Harold Bloom, who solves literary criticism with one small book, The Anxiety of Influence. Sam, would you like to tell us where you first met The Anxiety of Influence, and maybe just a short description
Sure.
of
Yeah.
what that book is trying to do?
Well, the problem with solving all literary criticism is that solution is always inimical to art. Like it's you can't solve something um, and then keep going, and that's part of the problem, I think. Um, where did I first encounter it? Probably in my own like body and brain,
Mm.
and I kind of I wrote this sort of it's a little sequence in the Point article that you guys read that led to this conversation. There's a brief moment where I do talk about kind of tracing influence and lineage and music first. Before I even knew who Bloom was, I was doing that when I was in high school and I was getting into all sorts of like underground music, and I was thinking, well, the Replacements. This sounds a little like just a kind of a punkier Big Star. And oh, Big Star sounds they're kind of like the Stones plus the Who plus the Byrds and the Beatles. And so I was kind of doing these very rudimentary, like because in pop music you can do it so much simpler. You can just kind of pick a band and be like, Sonic Youth is the Velvet Underground plus Glenn Branca, and it's like boom, you can do these simple little equations.
Yeah, and
And
follow
I had a lot
everything
of fun doing
back in a very
Absolutely.
easy way because it
Absolutely.
happens in a very compressed way in pop music. I
Early
mean,
Beatles is Chuck Berry plus like the Supreme. Well, the Supremes weren't around yet, but girl groups,
But
yes,
it
that
happens
kind of
so
thing.
quickly as well. Like,
Yes.
when we're talking about this classical music, you have these movements that last decades. In the
hmm
20 years between Haydn stuff and Beethoven stuff, we can still say
hmm
Beethoven's got a lot of Haydn. Whereas
Yes.
all of pop music, we're talking sort of less than 100 years in
Yeah.
decades. And then we
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
these entire, like, every other year, new movement, new
Oh,
subsection,
yeah.
new kind of family tree
And
you
at
can
its
follow.
height, pop music moved so fast. Like it moved so much faster than we move today, even. I think. But yeah, you can kind of do. I started to do that even as a young teen, getting into different kinds of music, realizing like, oh, this sounds a lot like this other thing. And I didn't think of it as an anxiety. I thought of it more as just like what I was trying to do myself as I was developing as a songwriter, because I was a songwriter musician before I was ever trying to be a writer or a poet or anything else like that.
mm,
I thought of it at that time as more sort of like an ecstasy of contamination as opposed to like an anxiety. It was like you get touched by it and all you want to do is be like that thing and you start to think like maybe I could do that. I want to do that. And it really does start in that simple of a place.
yeah. Let's talk a bit about specifically about Anxiety of Influence, the book, because it
hmm
seems like the lightning bolt of pure Bloomian inspiration as a book. Like if you give it to someone at the wrong age, their entire mind is ruined forever, mine included. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It's like Nietzsche, it's like Freud,
yeah,
you can't get it at the wrong time. You can't
yeah.
build a worldview around it.
Milo's read it for the first time now, which is
Just recently.
yeah, just
Okay.
like in prep
Mm.
for this interview.
Wow,
Yeah, it
okay.
might actually be interesting. Like now you're at the end, Milo. What are some of the takeaways? What are the
Klineman,
yeah,
Epiphrades,
yeah,
Tessera,
Kenosis? Yeah.
Kenosis.
a lot of
It,
Greek words
yep,
occurring. I think,
demonization.
yeah,
Mm.
it's useful to come into it in a frame where mumbo jumbo can be identified, rather because there was a time, and I remember when I first started watching sort of art films, in
Hmm.
which I was subject to every film, and if it didn't work, it was kind of
Hmm.
a me problem,
Yeah.
not the film. Like, Goddard is just, he's too smart for me. He's played me again, that wily devil. Whereas now I can kind of call him out on his nonsense, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
sort of,
yeah.
I think, had I read Bloom earlier as sort of a very early piece of literary criticism, I would have thought, Jesus, this man's intellect so far
Mm.
beyond me, I can't
Hmm.
even comprehend what he's saying.
Right.
Whereas now there are parts where I say, it cannot be comprehended because it is not that well put. And I find especially that the difference between kenosis and ascesis, I believe, is a little suspicious. Those guys groove
Yeah,
into a
yeah, yeah,
similar
yeah.
beat. And I think that the problem of the book is often in its very specific line by line reading, getting deep into it. And as you
Mm.
say, very repetitive.
Right.
And he's not a big evidence man. You know, he'll make a claim about the relationship between two poets, won't feel a great need to actually textually justify it. Merely say, as we know, Wordsworth is the heir of Milton, and as we know, the prelude is the heir to Paradise Lost, and sort of we're so
Yeah.
deep into the argument. I know it's a 200-page book, but we're so deep into the argument we
It's not,
haven't.
and it's not a textual similarity or a historical similarity. It's a spirit thing. It's
Yes.
Yeah,
Wordsworth's
Yeah. Yeah,
soul
yeah,
is
yeah.
communing with Milton's
Yeah,
soul
yeah, yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
some on some
Uh-huh.
spectral plane, on
Uh-huh.
some
yeah.
astral
This
But
is
what?
plane.
this is this is why it always bugs me that Bloom would be careful to say, well, my dear, of course, I just meant that it's happening within the text itself. It doesn't mean that it's happening. It's like, yeah, but you're also talking about like it's metaphysics, right? You're absolutely like this is the yoking of one writerly self to another. A kind of constant rechanneling through time. And I think the problem with, if there is a problem with Bloom and if there's a problem with the anxiety of influence itself, the book, it is always going to be the fact that Bloom wants to say what Bloom wants to say. He's not pursuing any other truth besides the Bloomian truth. That's why I think I have to regard it as a work of literature,
Hmm.
not criticism
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily.
And I think the part of it that is compelling is then really the big idea that you don't want to get into too much of the nitty gritty. The problem
Hmm.
he identifies, the anxiety of influence, I think for anyone who's ever created anything, kind of strikes the chord. Even the phrase,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what that is, even when
Hmm.
you don't know
Which is
what
why it's
that is.
become such a good meme. Like it's lived past him. And
Yeah,
anybody who encounters it in the wild might not even encounter it with his name attached, and they still will probably feel it.
yeah. And then the solution he offers is compelling because it seems so self-evidently wrong
Mm.
in that his use of the word misinterpretation. He goes for
Misreading, creative
misprison in the text,
misreading,
but
misprison.
misinterpretation
Yeah.
is, yeah, because he doesn't define it too nicely. You can give the nice definition, which is that it's almost a subconscious event, that
Mm.
you it's not that you didn't comprehend the work, it's not that you
Mhm.
didn't get it, but it's kind of a psychological mechanism. I mean, it's so Freudian, really, but a psychological
It's
mechanism
it's
to
just
save
it's
the
Freud. Yeah.
author,
Yeah.
yeah, from the angst and therefore come to a new ending. And you could describe that in so many other ways, but to say misinterpretation is quite confrontational. And then he
Hmm.
gives us these
Hmm.
6 points, and I think the 6 points are fairly arbitrary, and whether it's a
Yeah.
process or whether
Yeah.
it's you do one or the other, and that seems to me a little bit irrelevant.
I think, see,
But
that's why I think a little bit of anxiety of influence. I think he had in the back of his mind, probably he had, because I do think that he stands in an anxious relationship to Eliot's, what's that damn
Tradition and the
essay?
individual
Tradition and
talent.
the individual
Absolutely.
talent.
And
And that's
Eliot
part
is
of the
the
reason
only.
he hated Eliot,
Yeah, and
right?
I think so, and he often cites anti-Semitism, but he's very comfortable with other anti-Semites in the canon, Virginia Woolf, or
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
and yeah, there seems to be something very
Hmm.
specific about
Well, he
Eliot that
doesn't
makes
like
him
normative
uncomfortable.
Christianity. That's another part
That
of
as
it.
well, yeah, probably, yeah.
That's why he just kind of Hopkins is a minor poet for him. He can't quite get through to, if he
Herbert,
can find Gnosticism in a Christian writer, then he will be very happy about it, and he will.
Yeah.
burrow into that. But
I know he hates
otherwise,
John
he's kind of
Coltrane's "A Love Supreme," which is a
yeah,
real
yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah,
which is absolutely crazy.
It's the Orthodox
Um,
Christian themes in the Love Supreme
Supreme
beamed
just
into his brain. Hold on. The Trinity?
it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Blue
yeah, yeah.
Train is still
Yeah, yeah,
Gnostic,
yeah.
but by the
Black,
time you're like,
Black American charismatic Christianity. I can't. It's like it's funny because he wrote that book, The American Religion, and he did all that, and he had so much interest in like American charismatic Christianity. But I'm just like, where does gospel music fit in that, man? Where does
yeah,
spiritual jazz? Like that's real stuff. But
yeah.
I
He,
think I think I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but I think to go but the coal train of thought to go back to
Ooh.
Whoa.
whoa to go back to the well oh his anxiety of influence. I think does have some, because Eliot says as much in that essay. He really says the same, and he says it more succinctly, and it's a great essay. I do think he also had in the back of his mind Empson's Seven Types
Yes.
of Ambiguity. I thought, which is one of those books where you really feel like, hot damn, how did this man systematize this?
Mm.
And find so many true examples of exactly what he's talking about. That's the kind of critical mind that I just can't really understand myself. I felt like you're talking, Milo, about the young person looking at the Bloom categorizations going, oh, what a genius. It's like, well, I kind of felt that with Empson in some ways, and with Northrop Frye and other guys who like just seem to be able to systematize things to such a degree. I do agree that Bloom's types are a bit arbitrary. I think the value of the anxiety of influence, the book, is the same as the value of Bloom, which is it's an inspiration. You have to take it as an inspiration, as a call to action. Um, I think what's difficult about Bloom and about that book and his theory is that it shares with Freud and with Nietzsche and others, at its base is a kind of horror, right? Like it's incredibly disturbed
Mm.
by the material that it's trying to uncover. And the difficulty of it is the same as the difficulty of Freud, which is this kind of suspicion, very dark, almost occult suspicion that there's no bottom, right? There is no originality. There is no point where you rest on the created self and you say, this is me. It's only endless sublimated agon,
Endless becoming.
constant conflict. All you can do is say that there's anxiety. Oh, I'm anxious. What do you do with that? Well, you only sublimate it, you know. You either have civilization with its discontents, or you have just like pure unmitigated murder. Like it's just like this is the horror, right? It's like this fear of like we're just built on endless contingencies. There's no bottom.
Mm.
And I think that's the loop that I got trapped in to a degree
Yeah.
as I was trying, because with Bloom's, the reason that I love him is because he is the gateway. He is the point at which somebody said, this is what literature can do. This is who a writer can be. This is what is happening. This conversation, yeah, it's a competition. That's fine. But also, you're participating in something that crosses time and space and mind. And it's incredibly exciting, and it's all there is. It's like it encompasses all there is, and you're trying to participate in that stream somehow. So it was ennobling and inspiring, and it pushed me out to say, I'll be a writer, damn it. I'll do it. I can do it. I want to be a poet. I want to be a novelist. I can do everything potentially. And then you start the process. But if you start the process with the anxiety of influence as a doctrine behind it all, you end up where I ended up, which is I can't handle this. It's a real felt anxiety now. I can't get past all these great, magnificent precursors. I can't do anything possibly. At the bottom of every move, I really am it's just misprison every time. I'm shuffling to the side. I'm swerving to try and avoid something that somebody has done before.
Mm.
And I think it's
Yeah.
the same as with any other anxiety. You just have to wear yourself out to the point where you go, I can't live like this anymore. Like it doesn't work. You either drive yourself into the ground or towards like some sort of mania, or you realize why did I need this?
Mm.
Why did I need this anxiety? Well, I needed it as a sort of a goad, as a prod to get me going. But at a certain point, the anxiety becomes the point. And the symptom of the anxiety is just the whole purpose is to keep you in the loop. It's to keep you in a place of constant cycling through these worries. And at a certain point, you have to recognize, oh, this isn't my friend anymore. This is
Yeah,
not helping me.
it's interesting, especially if experiencing it at that age, and to use it as a diagnostic tool, as in, am
Mm.
I currently doing Cleanemon, or is this
Am I doing
demonization?
demonization? What's
Is
Yeah,
yeah.
this
yeah, yeah.
yeah? Am I
Yeah,
Tessera?
yeah,
I'll do Tessera for this poem. I'll
yeah.
this will be my get out. But I can
Hmm.
really see that being, because when you see the categories, when you see the list, there is a temptation to believe they are true. You must operate in one of them, which is going to be
Yeah.
I'm not going to defeat Bloom and be none of the six. So which
Mm.
of the six am I? And
Hmm.
becoming so self-conscious, because of course part of the point Bloom is making is this is all subconscious or
Yeah.
unconscious in all these artists. But unfortunately, Bloom blew it, told us the secrets, and now we have to know we're doing one of I'm
Yeah,
back into I'm
this is
swerving
this, and it's this
again.
That's
psychoanalytic problem too, right? It's like we've named these things now.
yes.
So, is it my
Imagine
mom
living
or
in a
my
world
dad
where
that I hate today?
there's no word for subconscious. Imagine
Yeah.
the relationship with the subconscious in a world before that has been named.
Hmm.
I'm so jealous of it, in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worth
Yeah.
saying
Yeah,
about the books you mentioned, the ones that are kind of soul destroying if you get them at a fragile age, Genealogy of Morals, Civilization, Its Discontents, Anxiety of
Yeah.
Influence, all
All of
three
them.
of those were written extremely quickly. Anxiety of Influence was
Ah,
three
yeah,
days.
interesting.
Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche, did 18-hour days, got it done in a ridiculously short time. Civilization, Its Discontents, again, Freud said it was a sudden, extreme urge to write. The
Mania,
yeah,
literally. Yeah.
yeah, a writing mania that got these things produced, and I think if you had to really consider what you were saying, these kinds of books would be impossible. And if you really dwell on the content of these books for too long, you also start to live in pure impossibility.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting that going briefly back to the differences between Bloom and Eliot, and I do think that there are differences. I don't think
Hmm. No, I think so.
it isn't like Bloom is just expanding on Eliot. I think there is genuine demonization, a war going on between the two
Hmm.
of them. I mean, in Eliot, there's the young poet, the young artist sublimates themselves, destroys themselves, sacrifices themselves to the tradition. They disappear
Hmm.
fully into the tradition and in that moment
Hmm.
become most fully themselves. At the time when a young poet most resembles Ovid or Shakespeare or whoever it is, that's the moment when they have mostly become themselves.
Hmm.
Whereas Bloom, it's much more individualistic. The great poet preserves their individuality. They
Hmm.
distinguish themselves. They walk along the same path as another former great poet, but at some point they take another path. And that's the moment when the poet becomes most fully themselves. Whereas in
Yeah,
the
so
Eliot
put.
model, it's more they walk the same path the entire way to the
Hmm.
end. Just
Hmm.
by virtue of it being now, it becomes something new in a quite a mystical sense.
Yeah.
Funny to think
yeah.
sometimes in the way that Bloom described like Kleineman, that term for taking another path, that term for swerving, is that
Hmm.
he describes it almost as if it is writing exactly the same poem, like in that Borges short story.
Pierre Menard. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's. I'm going to write the entirety of Paradise Lost, but Milton, the last word, that last line, it wasn't doing it for me.
Hmm.
Through Eden took their solitary way. That should be through Eden took their solitary cow. and the
Fix
entire
it.
the whole poem up to then normal, but me as the new poet, as a young poet, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
and then it's about the birth of agriculture.
yeah, exactly, and people are gonna read through it going, was there a cow there? Have I missed the cow? It makes you
It's the
think about it.
aleph. The
It's like
aleph is the ox. It's
it's
the cow.
it's
It's the
like the end of
beginning of it
Twin Peaks
all.
season 3. It opens the whole
Yeah.
thing up again. You're like,
Oh my
wait,
God. Yeah,
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 there's
yeah,
more.
and I guess there's what the almost paradox trying to resolve is when does a great work, Paradise Lost, let's say, when written, the great work, when does a great work then become insufficient that it needs to be supplemented?
Yeah,
Where's the
right.
room for old
Yeah,
me? Where do I come in? They've done it. It's done. So you have to
yeah.
misinterpret it, which is to say it's not done. Because if he was trying to do what I'm trying to do, he clearly didn't achieve it because there's
Well,
no cow at the end.
this is a little boring, but I wonder if it's not just time,
yeah.
right? Like the whole
Hmm.
long 18th century is like, well, we have the epic and we've got a great achievement in English letters. We've had the English Ariosto and the Tasso or whatever, our Dante. So what's left? Well, let's just make things perfect,
Yeah.
Like let's just be as complete and succinct as possible. Let's create some rules. Let's have the grand neoclassical style, and you get somebody like Pope who can only write a mock epic,
Yeah.
right?
Let's wait until the invention of the steam engine and then get really nervous.
Yes, precisely. And then we can make Paradise Lost a poem of me,
Yeah.
the prelude.
That's the
You
problem with Paradise Lost. Not enough of this. Well, not
not
enough of
enough
me
of
in it.
this.
Yeah. I stole
Not
the boat
enough.
once and
Milton.
felt
Yeah,
guilty. I felt guilty.
yeah.
Yeah. There's not a day that goes by
Misprison.
when I don't wake up and thank God that I don't have to write the Divine Comedy. I find I'm very soothed by this. Like, oh, woo,
It's
close
been
one.
done.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have to because that would be a ball ache having to write that.
But see, this is why I don't understand our time because it's like we have such open contempt for the fact that something like the Divine Comedy exists. We have so much contempt for it that we don't even want to read it,
Yeah.
or believe that it's real or that it was done. So if we have all that contempt, why isn't somebody somewhere going, well, I'm gonna write the new comedy. I'm gonna write the commedia for our time. It would seem like our distaste for the history of literature would necessitate saying, well, we can do that. Let's do it.
Well, me and
But it
Milo
doesn't
know a guy
happen.
called Pepper Jensen who is writing the epic of our time.
Well,
But he doesn't he doesn't have much of a humanities background, and I think his way of making it the greatest epic of all time it feels very American to us. It's like he's gonna do Paradise Lost, but it's 100 times the length.
oh my gosh,
Yeah, I think
that's
I
amazing.
think he's written the first of 10 volumes, and the first is already equal to Paradise Lost in length. So he's already, but it is this idea. In fact, this idea we're talking about, the way
Hmm
he describes it is of surpassing everyone, and he wants to use every verse
Mm.
form. He wants Spencerian verse. He wants Milton blank verse. He wants to stuff it all in to
Wow.
surpass everyone. Again, it's the American. Let's make it bigger, longer. Everything's in there. It's like a
Yeah.
7-in-1 shampoo. You don't
Yeah,
need
yeah,
another
yeah,
one. This is the
Yeah.
one poem you'll ever need. But it is very kind of classical in that it's so. I mean, it may be even Virgilian. It's like, okay, we got
yeah.
the Odyssey, got the Iliad. How about we just stick them together? Best of both worlds, done.
That's a
Poetry's
very Roman
finished.
thing to do. Yeah.
Mm.
It's a very, and American. I mean, it's a very Roman and American thing to do, which is, I think, a sign of like the kind of height of abstraction, the point at which like a true religion or something kind of bleeds out and becomes just like airy, fanciful, empty categories for things, which is,
Mhm.
I think we're sim at a similar period to Rome in that way, and that we've taken on some kind of deep cultic religion,
Mhm.
but it's just kind of decayed into secular symbols for things. And we're
Mm.
Yeah,
still
and
trying to figure out how to animate them. So somewhere lurking is a new Christianity that's going to just rip it all up or something like that. I don't know.
We just need more lists of categories.
Yeah,
One of
exactly.
them will
That'll
be
do
true.
it.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting to, like, with the Bloom list of categories, for interpreting them as entirely accurate science is the pathway to doom, and
Mm.
perhaps true of Emersonian lists. And maybe we can find thousands of literary precepts, all of which are false and
Yeah.
untrue. But it's interesting to treat them then as a different thing, as this it Bloom as literature, because I think
Yes. No, he's not Aristotle. He's Longinus, right? Like
yeah, and
it's
I think
definitely
to
different.
Eisenstein, interestingly, in the
Mhm.
film sphere, because Eisenstein was one of the first sort of great film theorists and
Mhm.
wrote huge, I mean, so much of it's untranslated, unpublished, but huge tracks on montage. And he created all of these terms and phrases for types of montage. And
Mhm.
you tend to see students who have just recently had the Eisenstein montage class, which is where most Eisenstein is seen, will
Mhm.
suddenly start using these terms for different films as though they are universalizable. Then they'll disappear from the vocabulary very shortly after, upon realizing they only apply to Eisenstein's films. He was
Yeah.
making universal ideas, but no
Yeah.
one else followed him up on
Yeah.
it.
Or for a
Yeah.
style of film that was never subsequently really picked up. I mean, but
Mhm.
mostly just due to the invention of sound. I mean, you get it in a few, you know. You could apply montage to Abel Gance. You could apply montage to Leni Riefenstahl. But yeah, by the time you're getting to sound, it doesn't work for Howard Hawks, John
Yeah,
Ford.
and his
Mm.
specific for him, it's very
Yeah.
much a science of images, how they interact, how they
Right.
glance against
This
one
is
another.
very
Or you,
Soviet. Yeah.
yeah, it's very Soviet and it's very peculiar. But I like the sense that, like Bloom, you can take these montage rules and
Mm.
not using them as an actual scientific manual, but rather trying to get the literature out of them, the spiritual. Because I think actually Eisenstein, though he seems like the great cinema scientist, he's a bit more of the cinema mystic who happens to
Mm.
exist in a material age. I think there's a kind of religious lightning bolt that runs through his spine, which is why his hair is all at end, like the many great
Mhm.
mystic geniuses.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I can see it's a bit in you. I can see it's there.
Yeah,
Men with hair like me are
the
never
hat's
we're
trying
never
to
the
keep it
mystic.
down, but
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah,
it definitely does go out. This
but
This British humidity doesn't help.
yeah.
Um,
So I think it's just to find the endless category men who are maybe
yeah,
emboldened slightly by our material age, where everything can be formed into a
yeah,
method,
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's
or maybe
also
we don't take it so literally.
yeah. Well, it's also at the point at which any mystical tradition starts to understand itself as such, it falls into that, right? Like Kabbalah is that way. They're cooking things up. They're going, we perceive a numerology, and then well, we need a science of that, and it becomes just this like forming a new canon or corpus of ideas, which is inevitably always going to be estranged from the spiritual reality. And you're always going to have to reverse engineer that original and inspired impulse, the actual mystical breath of it all.
should we move on to movie films? Yeah, so my concept with this anxiety of influence in film
Yeah.
sort of interview project is that the father figures, the overbearing, frightening father figures about whom modern filmmakers seem to be having the most influence, I think are figures around this end of history era. So if I were to list, like, I think the four probably most influential filmmakers on someone starting making films today, I'd say Terrence Malick, David
Yes.
Lynch,
Yes.
Paul Thomas Anderson, and Quentin
Mhm.
Tarantino.
I would swap out I would swap out Scorsese for Anderson because I don't think Anderson's that influential yet.
It could be, yeah,
Could be,
yeah,
we could debate that.
and yeah, and I mean, and early Anderson, he's an interesting case where his anxiety of influence is extremely clear,
Hmm.
for the first two films. And in a sense, the Anderson Tarantino generation, the video cassette generation, are the first generation of American filmmakers who really seem to feel the anxiety of influence in a very vivid way. I would
Yeah.
argue the new Hollywood guys, your Altman, Spielberg, Scorsese, Coppola, cinema is still, for that generation, a new enough form that the presence of John Ford or Orson Welles or Howard Hawks doesn't seem to constrict them in quite the
No,
same
they're
way.
unafraid to borrow directly and
Yeah,
simply transpose it into an idiosyncratic thing.
exactly. And in
Yeah.
that generation in the 70s, you can always do the thing of ramping up the violence, ramping up the sex, and suddenly there's
De
Howard
Palma
Hawks.
and Hitchcock, right?
De
Like,
Palma and Hitchcock,
yeah,
exactly, and it feels new. Whereas by the time you're getting to Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson, both of whom,
twice removed by then. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, both of whom, yeah, the third generation of American sort of waves of filmmaking, maybe fourth if you're like really counting the silent era and the Griffiths and so on, and who also are the first generation to really grow up with a thoroughly encyclopedic knowledge of film.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
like Scorsese growing up, he went to the cinema a lot, but he's very beholden unto the programming tastes of New York cinemas.
Hmm.
Whereas, yeah, Tarantino and Anderson, it's all going in there.
It's all
Not
there,
only
yeah.
all American cinema, but Bresson and Bergman and those guys are all thoroughly in there as well.
Hmm.
And they
Hmm.
both, in a way, like at least at the start of both of their careers, they're both really. What do we do with that?
Yeah,
What do we do with this sheer amount
very much.
of input we're getting? And Paul Thomas Anderson's sort of thing is to, with Boogie Nights to basically remake Goodfellas, with Magnolia basically to remake Shortcuts,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
exist thoroughly within these previous modes, and Tarantino more of this magpie approach.
Yeah.
Take this from here, take this from here, take this
Yeah.
from here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Tarantino just figured out that like there's this entire domain of low culture, so to speak, to call it low culture,
Yeah.
in that was that just hadn't been tapped yet by the sort of mainstream Hollywood vision. Like he knew he could tell, I think, that black exploitation and Yakuza films and the whole, the Russ Meyer and oh gosh, Roger Corman kind of
Mm.
which was Corman was the training ground for like Scorsese and De Palma and those guys, right?
Yeah.
But this sort of like cheap, fun, lurid trash. Tarantino, I think, was he kind of was that inflection point. He was the kind of the ultimate postmodern. Like I can combine all these things together, make a kind of platonic version of them all,
Mm.
which is why people get excited about those films
Yeah, and to
because
sap and to
it
sap more
realizes it.
poetry out of them as well. I mean, just
Mhm.
you're taking this schlock, this discarded trash, and you're turning it into the cornerstone of your entire edifice. And the
Mhm.
hitmen are reciting Ezekiel. You know,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
I don't know how I feel about Tarantino these days, but it certainly is like that. Yeah, the influence is unbelievable.
yeah, and it's maybe one reason because him being such an ultimate postmodern figure that the Tarantino imitations are all so unbearable. I
Yeah,
find
yeah,
fake Tarantino is my least favorite genre maybe in all art. I really
pretty bad.
despise Tarantino imitations so thoroughly.
A lot of that didn't really survive the 90s, thankfully.
Yeah, I think there's a film like have you seen Seven Psychopaths?
Yes. Yeah,
Tarantino.
McDonough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just oh my, ugh,
Yeah,
I
he really needs
winced.
to make Irish, quirky Irish melodramas is what he needs to stick to. That's when he's
Mm,
good. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but then there's an anxiety of influence thing, presumably somehow pounced on him because he starts. I mean, in Bruges, maybe calling it extremely original would be a mistake because it is built
But it's
in that very
fresh.
90s.
It's very
It's yeah,
fresh.
yeah, yeah. There's something fresh about it, even though it's within that generic prison of sort of the hyper violent, hyper rude. He's put it in a kind of Irish British context and then
Yeah.
stuck it in Belgium as though to rip it from America as much as possible. And it kind of worked. And then Seven Psychopaths, he's gone back.
He goes to America, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. A big
And then
mistake.
suddenly,
Suddenly,
you know,
like Irish people having the kind of hamburger conversations makes it feel new.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they're having
yeah.
hamburger conversations while they're killing each other and they're using like four-letter words.
he
Mhm.
unclinamoned himself, to use the technical
Oh my God.
phraseology.
He
He
declinamoned.
Oh, I love
unswerved it.
this.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
So
man.
he's
The one who just does not transcend as Guy Ritchie. He just does not, I don't think.
Hmm.
Maybe Brits have a sort of like different feeling about him. Maybe he feels authentic, homegrown. I don't know. But what I get from his films is just kind of begins in the same place and goes nowhere, especially
Yeah, I
interesting.
feel like the notion with Guy Ritchie, I mean, I haven't seen many of his films in a long time, but is that early on he had just some energy in the way that,
Yeah,
a punk band
they
first
can be
album
fun. The film or those
is
films can be fun.
yeah, they had some energy, and then it was something native about it. I mean, now he just makes Aladdin remake. He's got a film, 2 or 3 films out a year. I don't know. He's become like an Amazon
Yeah,
Jeff
yeah, he's a
Bezos
machine.
movie factory.
I don't know. I think the ultimate cycle of the Tarantino influence is I can't imagine him making another movie because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is it, or my feeling is his best film, and the kind of very purposefully he designs it as a sort of last film, not just for himself, but Hollywood itself. He
Yeah.
he's very is I think, well, consciously or
Yeah, yeah.
subconsciously, it is positioned as a final Hollywood movie of all time. The fairy tale wrapped up
Yeah, I've just read it is
completely.
Tessera. It's completing the Hollywood project as it should
Yep.
have been completed, which is to
Yeah.
say, the
Yeah.
Manson
It's
murders
going back
don't
in
have to.
True
time.
revision.
Yeah,
True
it's
Yeah,
revision.
revision.
we
It's
have
taking the
revised
on.
not merely the
Yeah.
work, but the entire
Yeah.
Hollywood project, which ended his thesis ended with the Manson murders. Let's
And it
not
is
have the
really
Manson
is a
murders.
incredibly emotional movie for me, at least. It really is beautiful.
Yeah.
And
I,
you feel the rage of what was lost when that kind of innocence, true or not, spiraled into that kind of paranoia and
Yeah,
violence.
I,
Tarantino's Paradise Lost. Eve just doesn't eat the
Yeah.
apple. Fixed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Milton, you've
that's
got
that's so
yeah,
interesting.
it's
because
leading up. It's
Blake
it's
fixes it in
day in
his
the life.
way.
It's a day in the
Oh,
life poem set in Eden, where we're just like having a nice time with these
oh
two
my God.
people
Yeah, that's
in
beautiful.
Eden, and we're thinking the
Yeah,
apple's going to be eaten the entire, and then whoop,
Uh,
yeah.
and then Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt come and beat the snake up, beat it to death, skin it,
Yeah,
yeah,
and then they leave.
that movie's like exalted. It's a beautiful film.
yeah, and I was talking to a friend Elias about this. He overlaps with lots of these interests, and he was saying it's funny that Tarantino, as soon as he's become a mature filmmaker and found his own voice and had a
Yeah,
mature
yeah,
style
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not derivative,
Mhm.
he's just like call it a day. And he described the metaphor of having a rusty tap. You got to turn it on, and you're getting this rusty water coming out.
Mhm.
And then, on the ninth glass of water, it's finally clean. No more
Mhm.
rust in the water. And that's it. You just have a nice glass of
That's your
water.
glass, and
That's
that's
the
it for
end
the
of the
day.
career.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Ah.
Again, I think to Keats writing all of those poems about how
Mhm.
great it is to be a poet. Finally
Mhm.
writes some poems and dies.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
That's
It's nice. I
Tarantino.
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
what a poet he would have been had he lived the classic, 7 decades.
Right. So
But
is Pulp Fiction in this case like on looking into Chapman's Homer or
Yeah.
something? Like, is it
yes,
Something along that. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
it must
And
be.
it must yeah, Tarantino, the thing that allows him to finally transcend the overburdened awareness of Hollywood history is to make a
Mhm.
film about Hollywood history.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's
Yeah.
why it's his best, the most
It's the
interesting
thing he
thing
knows
that he did.
about, not only because it's about movies, his home, but it's about Hollywood, where he's now in movies.
Yeah.
That's most of his adult life has been in this world. His
Hmm.
entire upbringing was in this world in a fantasy sense. Now his
Yeah.
entire adult life has been in this world in a real sense, and then
Right.
he finally gets to make a film that has soul and has an original voice. Like he's really that feels like there's so little to prove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Who are the others that you mentioned? You mentioned
I
Terrence Malick,
David
Anderson,
Lynch.
and David
David Lynch's
Lynch.
influence on Tarantino kind of considerable at the beginning. I mean, the David Foster Wallace essay
Yeah.
on Lynch has
And
like a
some people read, The Lost Highway as just sort of his referendum on Tarantino and
yes,
on the whole like new independent
yeah,
film that he basically like created Lynch,
facilitated. I
created that
mean,
kind of American
Blue
independent
Velvet
cinema.
just got all those films
Yeah.
made in a way. I mean, yeah, and then Reservoir Dogs sort of and
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction repackage
Yeah.
it in a way to help all these other films get
Well,
made.
and the fact that Twin Peaks ended up on actual, it ended up the most popular television show in the world, or in America at least. Crazy, astounding that that happened.
Mm,
Um, I think Lynch is interesting because, now that he's dead, he's a god, but he's not perfect. He's he's too interesting to be perfect, I think. His work is fascinating, but I think there's going to be a little time that has to pass because of the postmortem
mm.
before we can really start to appreciate the full texture of it.
I was talking to again. Elias told me there seem to be things in Lynch that are influenced neither by his personal experience in his
Mm.
life, nor by anything in movie history. There's just this
Yeah.
strange transcendental dream element that's coming in
Yes.
from elsewhere
Yes.
that feels like a genuine lightning bolt. And okay,
And
that his
that's
films,
genuine surrealism, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's you're tapping into to dream. It's not fake surrealism. You're
Hmm.
not consciously constructing a surrealist image in order to say something. You're letting the dream overtake you. You're
Yes.
not commanding the direction it goes.
Yes.
And his relationship to the Hollywood canon is itself kind of dreamlike.
Hmm.
And especially if you compare him to someone like Anderson or Tarantino, who are very good at vocalizing the exact way that they love Taxi Driver or whatever.
Hmm.
David Lynch, his we're talking about Rear Window or whatever. It's just what a movie! I love
Yeah,
it so
yeah,
much. It's so cozy. I had
have
such
you
a
seen
nice
that
time watching Rear Window, and you can't tell whether he's an idiot. um,
he's not, I mean, there is a bit of the idiot savant to him, right? Like, but I think that was more of a posture than some people suggest. I think people tend to worship him as a kind of angel figure now. And I think the whole point of Lynch's filmography is to say cosmic evil exists. It absolutely exists, and you can channel it. But cosmic beauty and good also exists. And sort of the genius of that proposition is that he can love something like Hitchcock and see in it, buried in it, this sort of like what in Hitchcock is a sort of mordant joke about people's capacity for total viciousness and perversion that's just kind of done as a light dance. There, Lynch can perceive in that, like, oh no, there's something spooky going on. There's a deep operation of human violence that just needs to come out, and it is related to something kind of grand and cosmic and evil. But on the other hand, The Wizard of Oz is
yeah,
this. It's a Wonderful Life, the sort of early Hollywood projection of innocence, which Mulholland Drive is all about that,
he
right? It's
finds
all
the
about
darkness in that.
the
Yeah,
it's all about the bright, shiny veneer that hides unbelievable human perversion and darkness. Lynch still believes in the innocent part. He really
yeah,
does.
yeah.
And he wants to protect that and love it. And he sees sentiment, not even Hollywood sentiment, not as just this purely corrupted illusion, but as like a reaching, an actual desire to honestly and truthfully reach towards something transcendent and beautiful and good.
Mm.
And he gives a lot of dimension to American history, artistic history in that way. I think that's why people like him a lot still.
I don't know. He takes the murder mystery form, for example, in the Twin Peaks,
Hmm.
certainly in the pilot and the Fire Walk with Me, the things he actually directed, and just extracts as much tragedy as possible from it. It's like you don't
It's so
Janet
sad.
when
Yeah.
Janet Leigh dies in Psycho, or
Mm.
when the girl dies, when the blonde girl dies in a Hitchcock film, it's yeah, there is a certain cynicism or indeed, sexual perversion there. It
Yeah.
doesn't, he doesn't,
Yeah.
and Lynch, totally humanizes and then sort of spiritualizes the entire fate of Laura Palmer in a way which I just find
Hmm.
extremely touching. Like yeah, he takes the dark, grim world of Hitchcock, of a film like Psycho, and extracts all the beauty and goodness of this world, and emphasizes that as well as emphasizing all the darkness in the happy world
Hmm.
of something like Wizard of Oz.
Well,
Yeah.
you talk about like anxiety of influence, this sort of the idea that Bloom toys with, but which really is like a Borgesian idea that the artist creates his precursors. I think there's that Kafka and his precursors essay where
Mm.
Borges says that a great artist reveals his precursors or creates his precursors. I think there is something in Lynch that retroactively creates Hitchcock.
Yeah, certainly
That
films like
especially
Vertigo.
Vertigo.
Yeah,
Gosh,
yeah.
could we have understood what was going on in Vertigo without Lynch? I don't know. He opens up a new dimension to it. Even that color green of Kim Novak in the window and the green neon light on her, which is the same green as the Emerald City and the Wizard of Oz.
Mm,
And now those two things go in my mind
yeah,
together. Do they go in my mind together because of David Lynch? Maybe.
yeah.
You know,
Maybe. Yeah.
there's a sort of, I do think he reveals what was, because Vertigo is, it's not Lynchian exactly, but it has the same tragedy you're talking about. It's that one moment in Hitchcock where the note of unbelievable sadness
Mm,
and real humanity
yeah.
exists
And
and is kind
maybe
of held for a second.
yeah, and it also has like the most hint of supernatural in Hitchcock.
Yes.
Okay, it's dispelled, but you get to dwell in the supernatural realm for quite a while. It also has that
Yeah.
motif that completely obsesses Lynch of doubles, of doubled women, of women
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
look the
Yeah.
same but they're different. The whole of Twin Peaks 3, you've got the two Coopers, you've got two Audreys, you've got two of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. He does that really well.
And yeah, that's just
See, here's what I would say is that I think the difference between America and Europe and American art and European art almost in a way could be embodied in that how Lynch approaches doubling versus how Kieślowski approaches doubling in might be my favorite movie ever is Le Double Vie de Véronique, The Double Life of Veronique.
mhm,
Um, very different.
yeah.
Some similarities, but I think you can almost catch a sort of sense of the difference there. Because my feeling is I'm kind of intruding here and taking us in a different direction, but we can go back. Is that I think Kieślowski also deserves to be on your list of most influential, but it's so much more covert.
Yeah, perhaps
And
not on Americans
Americans
as
maybe
much. Yeah, no,
don't. Yeah,
that's what I was, and
exactly.
also all of these, this entire idea that the '90s are the first generation to really feel the anxiety of influence doesn't work as well in Europe. I mean, I
Yes,
don't think like I don't
that's
like
true.
'90s Mike Lee. I don't think it's
Mm,
or in here in Germany like Edgar Reitz and Wim Wenders. It still feels like a
I
very
love
original.
Vendors. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they are very original. They're motivated more by literature or something,
yeah, something
or
outside
drama
film.
itself. Mike Lee is just like that's I don't know.
Yeah, and
It's
that's
the
kind of
stage.
one of the interesting things that the international cinema culture does to cinema and allowing it to move on, allowing misreadings to take place in a kind of more pure and accurate way. I mean, the Kurosawa example of taking all
Mm.
the cowboy movies, making them samurai movies, and
Mm.
then America taking Kurosawa samurai movies and making them cowboy movies.
And sci-fi movies and
Yeah,
things.
and
Yeah.
George
Yeah.
Lucas is like, I'm going to make a cowboy movie and a samurai movie in space, and it's going to be the most popular movie in human history.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
If you're going across various countries, if you're hopping between them, the ability to misread in a creative way and keep cinema kind of moving and doing interesting things and not being so stagnant, not feeling like crushingly derivative. Yeah, it happens with an international cinema culture.
like Kurosawa does with Shakespeare, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, yeah.
Do
Yeah, I
you?
mean, he had an interesting anxiety with, and it'd be interesting if we knew a little bit more about how his mind was working. But apparently, with Ran,
Mhm.
he had written the story himself, and then someone informed him, by the way, you've written King Lear.
Hmm.
And I don't know what his response was. I know that ultimately he integrated King Lear into the screenplay and made it closer. But I wonder what the experience is of writing King. I mean, I suppose the very basic structure of King Lear is pre-Shakespearean, and I think it's actually true that most, because Shakespeare just
Pretty
borrows,
archetypal, yeah.
yeah, borrows archetypes, borrows pre-existing stories. The actual structure of it is not really the most interesting thing in Shakespeare. But the experience of anxiety, which is actually a classic artistic anxiety, not so much in the Bloomian sense, but
Yes,
to have
yeah.
accidentally rewritten a
Hmm.
thing that you either did or didn't know about, especially when you did, but like you come up with the tune of a song and oh god, it's ABBA, but it's kind of like the
Yeah,
rediscovering of a thing you already knew.
Mm.
And so
yeah.
you have Kurosawa, who is the most Western of the Eastern
Hmm.
directors, if we're
Hmm.
gonna
Hmm.
draw it like that, who's he didn't watch so many Japanese films. He loved, I mean, weirdly, Ozu also mostly watched Western films,
I didn't
being
know
maybe the
that.
most
That's
Eastern
interesting.
of the
Yeah,
Eastern directors. But Kurosawa very much
yeah,
plugged into
yeah.
the West,
Hmm.
almost made an English film, but kind of pointing that way. And then we adopted him in a way, compared to, say, Mizoguchi and
Sure.
Ozu, who are always a little bit more foreign. But yeah, I wonder what it feels like to accidentally sort of write King Lear and then
Mhm.
invite King Lear into your accidental King Lear rewrite to sort of claim it, to be like, oh no, it's fine. We'll just bring it
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
We'll
yeah. Well, it
just
seems to me with Ron, what he really probably figured out was like the device of the fool could be because he milks that even more than Shakespeare does. Like in Lear, right, the fool just disappears. But
Mm.
hmm,
in Ron, Kurosawa keeps the fool around for a very long time, right
Yeah,
up to the end.
yeah, I know.
Seems to have liked that.
I can't remember. De Palma's obsession, I think, was based on De Palma not being able to see Vertigo. You couldn't see Vertigo back then. And
Interesting.
he saw it when he was younger in the cinema. I was like, God, where do I get a copy of Vertigo? And just
Wow.
had to make it in order in order to see it again. So it's like De Palma's, hazy, half-remembered version of what this film was in an attempt to
Yeah.
make it. And I'm thinking, who wrote Taxi Driver, Milo? What's that guy called? Schrader?
Yeah,
Paul Schrader,
Yeah,
yeah.
Paul Schrader, yeah.
Schrader takes the end of Pickpocket, I think on three separate
Schrader
occasions.
just makes
Maybe four.
pickpocket. Every
Yeah,
Schrader film is pickpocket.
yeah, he just really like the end of
Or Winter
Pickpocket.
Light. He remade Bergman's Winter Light too for First Reformed.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I think an interesting point, and this is mostly in cinema, it kind of comes up in theatre, a few other places, but mostly in cinema, is not only the notion of almost every film being an adaptation, which is a
Mm.
form of remake, but also films that are remakes of other films. This is common in the industry. Not like people don't really do remakes of novels. That just seems
No.
absurd. Or remakes of albums, unless you
Mm.
are one particular pop star. It doesn't really make sense. But to actually just take a movie, we're going to do it again. And maybe it's a new adaptation from the same source. I mean, I think there's something like 12 Wuthering Heights feature
Oh yeah.
films that
Yeah.
exist, some of which are talking to the other movies, many
Hmm.
of which are just going back to the Bronte. But anxiety of influence, when you know you are consciously making not only spiritually the same work,
Hmm.
but the same work,
Yeah.
how do you get around that? I mean, what is the experience and the feeling of Francis Ford Coppola sitting down and saying, okay, let's do Dracula?
Mhm.
Or Eggers doing Nosferatu, or Herzog doing Nosferatu, or even Murnau doing the original Nosferatu, which is a ripoff of Dracula.
Right,
I
right.
mean, you're in a universe of just literally doing the same thing. I mean, you're going to get Clinamon to hell
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
sort of it's how do you actually,
Yeah.
as an artist, deal with
Well, I think
making the
the
exact
original
same thing?
like the original Hollywood system, the roughly like the sound era into the Hays Code in the 60s. I do think what we don't think about very often, what we underrate, is the fact that every other film was just based on a potboiler novel.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
They really
true.
were. They were pulling pulp novels out of the bins and saying, "Can we make a screenplay out of this?" The Graduate is a novel first, right? And like we don't even think of it now. We think that nobody reads that novel or knows that it
Mm.
existed.
Yeah,
But
even
like
even Gone with the
all
Wind,
these,
the novel is
even Gone with the
the
Wind.
reputation of the novel has, yeah,
Nobody
plummeted.
reads it. No, everybody thinks of the movie. And it's just true for so many of those. I mean, you have your peculiar figures who do kind of you might have a writer director like Billy Wilder who does kind of seem to summon these things out of whole cloth. But I think Sabrina was probably either a stage play or a movie. A lot of them were stage plays.
Mm.
For I mean, the Philadelphia Story was a stage play written for Katharine Hepburn that she kind of commissioned to rehabilitate her image, and it was a proof of concept for the film that ended up being such a runaway success that
Mm,
totally saved her from box office uh,
yeah.
purgatory.
Annihilation.
Yeah. So I
Purgatory
think,
annihilation. Yeah.
well, I think it's sort of like at the time when you're involved in an actual, uh, the ferment of an actual industry where the main point is just make the thing. You have to do it
Mm,
by this time. It's the same thing with Shakespeare, right? It's the same thing with anybody who's ever been a part of an actual culture of work and craft where the point is you got to get that out because it's going to go people are going to have to see it tomorrow or people are going to have to see it in a year. It has to go out there. Anxiety of influence just there's much less room for it to become a problem. There's much
yeah, it's
less
true.
time for it to
Time
become
pressure.
something that you can meditate
And also it
on.
being so collaborative as well. You can't, it's
Yes.
hard to,
Yes.
even with the most dictatorial Kubrickian control of your
Mhm.
medium, there's still compromise innately built into film in a way that there isn't in poems, and therefore you can't have quite the same Bloomian heroic Oedipal vision.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like all
And
these crazy examples of people making things shot for shot. Gus Van Sant's Psycho, one of Tarantino's
Right.
favorite movies,
Yeah, yeah.
betraying Tarantino's Hitchcock anxiety of influence. I think a little there. Can't admit any Hitchcock influence on me,
Funny
but
Games is a
Or
good one.
the what is
Same
that?
director, shot for shot. Funny Games,
oh
Haneke.
yeah,
Oh, Hanukkah. Yeah, yeah,
oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the shot for shot remake of his own film because he thought it
Doing
was
an
for
English
Americans
version, right?
because he made it in Austria and realized Americans will
Hmm.
never watch an Austrian movie. So really a lot of strength of will to be like, we've got to do it again. And it was fine. We don't need to change it. It was all right. We just got
Hmm.
to get the
mm,
But they
cameras
have to
rolling
teach the
again.
Americans also that the true moral of their cinematic violence.
yeah,
And it
Um,
worked. I mean, the Americans learned their lesson and
yeah.
we're
It's,
living in a
it's
post funny
yeah,
games
the
existence.
post, yeah,
post
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
post funny games, post
Hanukkah's
like
so funny. But yeah, anyways,
yeah.
we're going all over the
Yeah,
place, but
the
it's
Disney, like
fun.
there's that period in Disney, I think like post Disney's death, where I can't remember who the CEO was, but he liked like the idea of just getting the animators to copy whole bits. Like,
Yeah,
you
they
know, there's
would.
bits where like the bear dances in
Yep.
like seven films after another.
Jungle
It's
Book and Robin Hood and
the
all these other
same little
ones.
bear dancing animation
Yeah, yeah.
in order to sort of create this, because it didn't save time animating like this. It was still very strenuous. It was just, yeah, to create some sort of weird subconscious link, like I've seen this before. This
No, and it
little
works,
one,
right?
the
And
It's kind
same.
of brilliant because it actually does work. And if you as a kid like really do like inhale the classic Disney corpus, which I did, honestly,
Yeah,
because they were just around uh and it hadn't yet become this self-referential but obviously what you're pointing to is that it was covertly very self-referential. It was building its own little universe.
yeah. And Milo, in your review of Snow White, I think you said that a Disney picture of a bunny rabbit is more like a bunny rabbit than any bunny
Mm.
rabbit on
Oh,
Earth. Like
that's interesting.
Disney has kind of colonized reality, or lots of reality
Very much.
concepts. I imagine
Yeah.
the image of Europe as an American, is very infused, Disney influenced. Like,
It's Bavaria
yeah,
transmitted into cartoons. It's
yeah,
kind of the
yeah.
our idea of
And
Europe.
yeah, my surprise during that Snow White rewatch because I hadn't seen it in many, many years. And
Hmm.
often when revisiting these sort of childhood films, especially ones like Snow White, considered a classic. Eisenstein thought it was one of the great films. You know,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
changed the cinematic world. My expectations to go back and see something new and be surprised. But I found myself so inured with this grammar, with how everything looked, how everything moves in the animation. I was like, there's nothing here. Not in a bad way, just I know all of this. I
Yeah.
really sort of whereas watch a Fleischer cartoon and all the weird movements and eyes and or
Hmm.
even like the kind of Looney Tune stuff, which I've seen lots of, can still
Right.
surprise me. But the Disney animated grammar is so built in. I mean,
And
animators and the
it's sort of
anxiety of
one of the
Disney must be
geniuses of sort of the part of the genius of Hollywood as a whole, though, right? Is to sort of create a substitute or version of a thing, right? Like I
Hmm.
think of this as an interesting Umberto Eco essay on Casablanca, where he talks about how you go back and you watch that film and you realize I am watching the platonic version of every cliche that has been spilled out since. And there's
Yeah.
nothing here. There's no center to this film. There's no substance, and yet it is perfect, truly
Hmm.
perfect, and is completely composed of cliche.
Yeah.
And there's something about that. You feel like you're witnessing like this weird, eerie rock upon which everything else has been
Yeah, like
built
three
ever
cliches, it
since.
starts to, it's corny. But if the entire thing is cliches,
Yeah.
it's like reading Genesis, watching Casablanca. You're like,
Yes.
holy
Yeah.
shit, this is famous.
what's in the rest of this book.
Noah's Ark. Coming
Yeah.
next. Yeah, what's
Yeah,
coming
right.
next?
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's
I,
cool. That's
So
a
think
great
yeah,
point.
so maybe this is a way that film kind, or at least earlier film, maybe I think now we're back into angst period, but maybe
Hmm.
early Hollywood did kind of overstep anxiety of influence as the thing, just due to its factory nature,
I
due
think
to
that's
the
part
way
of
it
it.
was made
Yeah.
up. Michael Curtis, whatever the hell his style is, he's just sort of a name you stick on a movie made by one industry together.
Yes.
or even some of the
I feel
greats like William Wyler when he's phoning it in
Oh my gosh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, you can look at an individual Wyler film, like The Heiress or The Big Country or something, and it's like,
Dodsworth, oh, yeah.
yeah, and there's just like these sequences that are so perfect and
Hmm.
they're so invisible. He's so invisible as a filmmaker, and yet his sense of blocking when he was on, right, where his sense of like how to frame things, it is almost platonic. It has no texture to it, and yet you
Yeah.
can't imagine it being any different.
Yeah, the shot in Best Years of Our Lives where like the one-armed man's playing the piano with Hoagie
Hmm.
Carmichael in the foreground, and
Hmm.
in the background we see, it's one of those Greg Toland-ish deep
Yes,
focus shots
yes,
where you
yeah.
get, it might even been a Greg Toland DPing on Best Years of Our Lives. I'm
Probably.
not sure,
yeah,
but
I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
wasn't this, I mean, Weiler was, if you've read André Bazin, like the French
yeah, no, he
creator
adored
of
Wyler and
Cahiers. It
Wyler's,
was
yeah,
Weiler and Wells went in like together for him as like the pioneering deep focus, like
mm,
establishing this new dimension in the shots,
yeah.
which silent film had and kind of forgotten in all
Um,
that very stagey, talky
Best Years of Our
30s
Lives
film.
really anticipates a lot of these, like, I don't know, a film like Journey to Italy, this kind of plotless
Hmm.
kind of film. Even a
Almost
film like,
neorealist.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. A film like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, even, where it's
Hmm.
just like, this isn't really a plot. This
Yeah.
is just, there's
Yeah. Yeah.
just some men and they're coming home and here's their
Hmm.
lives.
Well, and the
Um,
master of that is Hawks, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
total lack of plot, total disinterest in plot.
Yeah, it's like a certain an ability to be original in film, at least with Hawks, and I think it applies to Paul Thomas Anderson as well, is to
Hmm.
create a space on set, to create a certain mood on set that allows unplannable, fascinating, random things to happen,
Yes.
and certain kinds of performances that I think would be impossible to direct. You couldn't direct Cary Grant in Bringing Up Baby to be
Hmm.
like that. And you couldn't direct Hoffman or Phoenix in a film like The Master. It's impossible to workshop a
That's a
performance
good point. That's a
like
really good
that.
point. But this is where I think Anderson is so interesting, and maybe this can tie us back a little bit, is that the reason that he maybe hasn't yet had much of an influence so much is that while you feel the anxiety of influence in those first three films, especially, and you still feel like he's still pepped up a little bit by I mean, he's so and in Punch Drunk Love, he still has Altman on his mind, right? Like to
Yeah,
the degree that he's lifting a song from Popeye. But
yeah,
uh but what he does after that, and this is where I think it's so peculiar. I don't actually know of an analog for it. I think his break after Punch Drunk Love and coming back with There Will Be Blood. Now, I don't think There Will Be Blood is necessarily his greatest film, the way a lot of people do, but it's a hell of a new beginning.
hmm,
It is, there's not a lot of times in many artists' careers where they so totally transform themselves. And I think it's partially because he did go back and try to actually understand what um, the old Hollywood guys were doing. I think he was trying
yeah.
to re-engineer and understand that world prior to
From
this
within, almost.
lineage that he
Yeah.
had ended up as. And you feel some of John Huston and John Ford and Howard Hawks
Hmm.
in that, but you also feel that he's kind of transmuting it into a sort of new thing. And they are these like those next few films are just these grand like extraordinary historical epics
Yeah, and
that are very
not really with
quite
analogs.
patient.
Yeah, there's
Not
just like
really, no,
there will be blood onwards is a new kind of movie that is his
I
kind of
agree.
movie. It's the classic thing of the Bloomian poet.
Yeah.
He starts in the in the Flemish school of Scorsese for Boogie Nights
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like the school of Altman for shortcuts. Punch Drunk Love's a bit weird. I know
It
his
is.
very first impetus for that film was the wish to make an Astaire and Rogers kind of thing,
I've
which
also heard Jones and Frank Tashlin
mm,
thrown
Hmm.
around. That
Chuck
sort
yeah,
of
Jones,
candy
big
colored
name.
the sort of like frenetic cartoon style, but also the sort of glittery MGM Technicolor musical, right?
yeah, and and it could be just to do with like normal life things. Like I know he becomes a father between Punch
Falls in
Drunk Love
Love.
and first, yeah,
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff, and maybe the behind the Bloomian Oedipal Freudian
Hmm.
edifice is actually just a thing of people growing up and having love and responsibility. Maybe it's got nothing to do with your relationship to previous poets and the Kleinman and everything. It's just what's going on in your own life, and maybe
And
yeah.
this is where I think Bloom kind of becomes a hindrance in some ways because Bloom doesn't account for life very often. He doesn't account for the world very often. He's so obsessed with the solitary reader as reader. He's so obsessed with the deep internalization of, which it's popular to say today is like this terrible Western construction that has, corrupted the entire world, this like self-obsessive, internalized self-consciousness. I think for Bloom, that was like suddenly, even though it's so painful and you have to nurture and read in order to sustain yourself through the pain of opening up this chasm inside yourself, of self-observation, even though it is maybe awful, it is also like the only time we've ever broken out in history briefly out of a sort of pre-literate oral embedded relation to the world and this weird submerged but now developing self-consciousness is like it's this sort of new creation that has to be delicately maintained. It's the sort of thing that like historicism, the new historicism is all about saying was a mistake, right? Like
Hmm.
the Enlightenment, all these illusions of a self and a deepening or growing sense of self is like such a nightmare. It's so terrible that we've done this to ourselves and as the West inflicted it on the rest of the world. I think that's a very simple story. I think it's just that this is a sort of thing that emerges at different places in time and in different traditions in the Eastern too. Um,
Yeah.
but the hindrance of Bloom, the difficulty is in so obsessing over that internal relation and the internal state that he does kind of neglect the interplay, the dance of nature, of the world, the reality of those things. Um, and those are things that we don't these days really believe are real, right? We tend to dismiss the idea that there is um, that subject and object are these interpenetrating things, and that we are connected to the world, and that we are subject to circumstance and nature and life, and these are just things that we live in a current with. We do obsess over the internal state, the insides of ourselves, the creation of ourselves. And I think what you're pointing to is that if you want to become yourself as an artist, you actually do have to kind of loop yourself up and outward from
Mm.
that subterranean self-creation. You have to go out of yourself at some point. And I do think, I'm getting pretty woo-woo mystical spiritual about this, but I do think when somebody
Our
like
audience love
when
this.
when PTA does do something like that, though, he's doing that. That's what he's doing. He's recognizing, oh, I have to go out of myself here.
Yeah.
I have to throw myself into a kind of heedless trust that, like, I'm going to discover something interesting here.
Yeah, and I think you can, I mean, just to take it to the most basic level, there's something of very simple age, like Shelley and Keats, is two of Bloom's sort of key touching points.
Hmm.
Poets who don't live very long, and the period we have is essentially juvenilia into the real deal. Of course, we have for every poet ever. It just happens that for them, that's everything. And so it
Yeah.
creates an interesting kind of apotheosis argument because as soon as they're fully formed, they immediately die,
Same with
which
somebody
is,
like
you know,
Hart Crane, whom Bloom really
yeah, and then
obsessed over.
we get PTA,
Mm,
who was a very early starter. In film, it's unusual to be as an early starter
true.
as PTA was. So when you get Punch Drunk Love, which is maybe the film that starts to transform, he's 32, and
Hmm.
most times 30
Older
is
than
when you're
Schubert,
allowed. Yeah, yeah,
older
Yeah,
exactly.
than,
yeah.
yeah,
Mozart
Shelley.
aged.
That's Mozart age. Yeah, Jesus,
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and that's usually for most artists that you're not allowed to make something even remotely good before you're 30. Pop
Right.
music, different world, some kind of beat poetry, different world. But for the novels, for films, for sort of symphonies, you're only allowed to do one, and not even a great one. You're not allowed to do a good one
Yeah,
until you're 30.
precisely.
And then the world begins to develop. And that's
Hmm.
that's a whole sort of, 3 decades worth of
Yeah.
figuring out what's it's all going in, and then 30 onwards it's all coming out.
How old are you guys?
I'm
We
Schubert.
got
I'm
nine.
31 here.
Yeah, I'm 31
31.
also.
Yeah.
I'm 29,
A
but nearly
babe,
allowed.
just a wee babe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
I
yet
think that's
permitted
Shelley.
to.
I think Shelley, is she 28, 29, Shelley? One of
I
them.
think so, yeah. After writing The Triumph of Life, what a loser.
Then a drowning too. Like,
Yeah.
gosh, of
Yeah.
course he drowns.
Neglecting is, yeah, just responsibility. Don't
He
go out
becomes
on the boat.
Licitious. He
Yeah.
becomes
Yeah,
Yeah.
Licitious.
Do you have
that's
any
Wild.
blatant rip-off films that you kind of prefer to the original? Like I
Oh,
have a really heretical, like
give me a few
I
examples and I'll probably come
think
up with
I
one.
think, and I can't figure out why I think this, but I think I prefer What's Up Doc to Bringing Up Baby. Now I can't figure it
I
out
don't
oh
because
understand that, but
Bogdanovich is better than is not as good as Hawks.
no,
Barbara Streisand is not as good as Katharine Hepburn. My God, Ryan O'Neal is not as good as
he's
Cary
not
Grant.
Cary Grant.
Holy shit! But there's something about What's Up Doc, and I
I
can't.
need to
I
go
think
back
it's
and watch it. It's
illness,
been a
but like
while.
illness. But
uh,
yeah, Crouching
I
Tiger,
don't
Hidden
know.
Dragon, Touch of Zen, quite a
Ooh,
good
that's
one.
interesting. Oh, but I love King Hu so much that
Yeah, Touch of Zen's ending. Holy moly.
Yeah,
You don't
the
see it
complete
coming.
ascension.
Yeah, like
Uh,
you thought this film was about this? No.
no, it's about we're done with samsara.
Yeah.
We've truly
Yeah,
we've
and you
reached.
see him on the cloud. I love it when it shows you
Yeah,
the ascension into
yeah,
heaven.
dude.
It isn't like a weird, like he fades away, ascension into heaven. No, you see the ascension into heaven.
Yeah, well, I think that's interesting because I do Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is incredible. And is a beautiful film. But it is sort of like the difference between that and Touch of Zen is sort of the difference between like pop and classical, right?
Hmm.
It's the first one, the original, is a sort of at times it's a bit of a slog. You're trying to reorient your
It's
attention to
longer.
adjust for this like thing where like maybe we're going to watch a man do calligraphy for 4 minutes. Like that's the ride we're on, and I'm not used to that, but I can slow back down and like embrace it. And yeah, it's gonna go on for a few more hours. And Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is this distilled, potent, like complex um platonizing of it, sort of like you really do get like a compact version of something, and yet it doesn't dilute it. A great work of art is not going to dilute whatever it's picking up and redoing, right?
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
like I do like both of those films very
I
much.
find it's like interesting when sometimes I think with maybe Robert Eggers' Nosferatu good to bring him back. I also thought about it.
That's one.
It's
That's one.
interesting where
That's one of mine.
I was just thinking about Scorsese, like almost about to give up filmmaking in the mid 2000s, and the thing
Mm,
that brings him back to filmmaking is a remake. It's The Departed, which is
yeah.
a remake of like
And it
a
finally wins him his
yeah,
Oscar, and
exactly. And it's like, hey, maybe I've got a few
yeah.
more in the bag yet. And thank God
Yeah.
that happened. I mean,
Mm.
yeah.
I do think that I think like Chinatown is better than even the classic
Oh
noirs. I think
yeah.
it's better than even the Maltese Falcon, you know. And that's a perfect movie, but Chinatown is like,
Yeah.
holy crap, you
It's
know.
you get
The
yeah, maybe it is just a Hays Code thing. Like it
Yeah.
just
Well, a lot of those 70s, like the new Hollywood films that we cherish, they really are just guys going, "Oh, we can do the old genre classics, but make them like
put tits in them.
make them novels, you know, like make them make blood and sex and
Yeah.
violence and adult themes. And The Godfather is just Scarface, you know,
Yeah.
the old, you know, it's the original gangster films, but now we can really milk them for their
Yeah.
full bloody
And
sexy tragedy.
like Polanski with Chinatown, you can have a level of darkness and depravity at the heart of America that you wouldn't
Right.
have been able to show before, like the
Exactly.
this
Exactly.
horrible implicit like finale of like incest rape and
Hmm.
like the
Hmm.
every everything goes as horribly wrong as it could possibly go,
Hmm.
and that's your finale. I don't see that flying in the 1940s.
No, no, not at all. I like Blowout, De Palma's Blowout,
Yeah, yeah.
better than The Conversation or Blow Up. I think De Palma does everything that those two films does, but in an even more exciting and
Yeah.
sexy and interesting
I
way.
go for the middle one there. I'm
Yeah,
Yeah,
conversation. Yeah,
Conversation.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But it's with Nosferatu. I'm also the Herzog Nosferatu.
It's
yeah.
I think
incredible.
that is the one I go for. But it is interesting to have the choices because I was thinking just
I
of the
like
Schrader
the Eggers, I
pickpocket.
think is just astonishing to me. It just gripped me and made it's the one for me. But the Herzog is a
Hmm.
masterpiece. It's perfect.
Yeah, and the Schrader pickpocket thing is quite nice because in the Bloomian sense, he's not just done pickpocket, but he's kind of
Hmm.
stepped to the side and created a new thing out of pickpocket. And now we can
Yeah.
identify the Schrader copycats who are not Bresson copycats, never seen a
Hmm.
Bresson film in their
Hmm.
lives, but we can identify the step along. So, sort of Taxi Driver being in some way a perfect distillation of something, in the way
Yes.
that Pickpocket is a somewhat perfect distillation of something,
Yeah.
but they don't feel like you're choosing one or the other. Was the remake better than the original? It's sort of like they're casting a line which is curving off
But then
to
you
some
watch something
degree.
like Joker and you're like, I don't think Todd Phillips knows who Robert Poisson is. Like, I don't
But yeah,
I
and
don't think
Joker,
he's
Joker's an
missed
interesting one
something
because
here.
we were talking about it prior to the conversation. It's a curious one where it clearly belongs to the school of Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
And you could clean them on it, whatever, Teresa it, whatever you wanted to do with Joker plus King of Comedy, Taxi Driver. But for whatever reason, and I'm not opposed to Joker. I think there was a lot of hullabaloo when it came out. I
Well,
think it's a
that's
fine.
true.
I think it's fine. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's a admirably made sort of ripoff, whatever. But what is it about the ripoff of Joker
Mm.
that makes it such, and the ripoff of Murnau's Nosferatu isn't such?
Eggers Nosferatu. Here Milo means Eggers Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Murnau's Nosferatu, you even call it a ripoff. Some people look at you strange, even though legally speaking, it big
Yeah.
time is because it was an unauthorized adaptation. But then Joker, he really does access elements of what makes Scorsese film good.
Yeah.
The sort of the imagery, the location, really
Mm.
committed performance. It's all
Hmm.
kind of there, and obviously the Venice jury did like it. It's not like it was a complete dead end, but you do get a lot of pretty strong. Yeah, well, that
Hmm.
happened. Todd Phillips,
Hmm.
not a name we're putting in the big book of names.
Right, right, right.
But why is Todd Phillips not in the big book, but Paul Schrader is? I mean, it's possibly an obvious answer, but it does seem to be true.
And even if Anderson had died after Magnolia, I think Boogie Nights would still feel like more admirable, more less embarrassing to admit you like
Hmm.
than Joker.
Yeah.
At least among a certain kind of
I
rarefied.
don't know. I don't think Todd Phillips really cares about people. Like, I don't think he likes people that much. I think that there's if you want to be that um just like misanthropic, which the film is, you can be. We just talked about Michael Haneke. Like is there a more misanthropic filmmaker? I don't know, but you sense
Buñuel, maybe
Buñuel
sometimes.
is very
Yeah.
yeah, very much. But with them, you sense that like each time they say, hey, it might be that human beings are irredeemable. They also have an interesting story to tell you as an alternative. They can also say, Buñuel can say, but the world is really strange and weird. And we don't, every one of our plans comes apart and dreams are interesting, aren't they?
Hmm.
And Hanukkah can say something like, maybe we're not redeemable, but we're not free from history yet. We have to keep
Yeah, and
powering,
they're
plunging
both
through
born
this
in
thing.
fascist countries. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and Hanukkah, there is like in the White Ribbon, you do get that sweet,
That's his best. I think it's his
gentle, like you
greatest
get
film.
that sweet
And it's because of
storyline
that.
between of the teacher and the
Hmm.
young and the girl. Like
That's
there is just
beautiful.
a
Yeah.
beautiful kind of sincere, sweet romance in that
That
film.
scene where he drives her out into the country for like a
Mm.
picnic and she just stops and says, can we go back? I don't like basically like I need to test you. Are you one of these terrible men?
Mm.
Am I going to is this going to in my life functionally or what? And the sweetness of that man to just say, yeah, I'll take you back.
Yeah.
That is almost that when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, he doesn't totally hate people.
Like Dale
Yeah.
He
Cooper
does,
with Audrey Horne on his bed. You know,
yes,
it's the
exactly
same.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Hennek, you get the benefit of him is partially how directed his criticisms tend to be. White Ribbon is a little
Yeah.
larger, but
Mhm.
ultimately maybe he's just saying the very agreeable statement: the German people are doomed because they are German. Fine, we can
He
accept
does
that.
say that. He does say that.
And most Haneke films are very much the middle class bourgeois, upper
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
the
yeah.
seat of evil, and he doesn't. I mean, I think in
Which is the
Buñuel he does
classic European
touch the
avant-garde position, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The Buñuel touches the aristocrats and the poor and everyone. He really does find a way
Hmm.
to knock everyone out.
Hmm.
Whereas Haneke, by simply accepting people, by not going into the kind of the lower depths or touching the now dead gods, he
Hmm.
redeems people by simply not talking about them.
Yeah,
by
that's well
not
put.
touching them.
Yeah, that's really well
Yeah.
put.
Yeah, Boonwell, you get
Um,
the impression as well, like if there were no capitalism, people would suddenly be redeemed. You know, there's a bit of that. There's a bit of that going on. A little bit of that disappointed idealist in Boonwell.
and maybe
Yeah,
Todd
that's
Phillips
the
doesn't have that.
1920s right there,
Yeah,
though. It's like
exactly.
the modernist
Yeah,
Paris,
because
Marxism.
the big swing of Todd Phillips is in the second film that no one saw, which is a
I didn't see
failure,
it.
but it's an almighty failure. And wow,
Mm.
someone really spent like $250 million of Warner Brothers money with
Hmm.
Final Cut to make one of the most hateful films ever made, not at humanity, but specifically at the big fans of Joker 1.
Yeah, that's what
The
I heard.
whole
It was
the
like,
whole movie is just that you didn't get it. This is not what it's about,
mm,
and this is going to be a 2.5 hour semi musical, which is a court case about
yeah,
all of your personal problems. And the reason I don't think it works is because the musical bits are stilted and not that imaginative. But really, I think in terms conceptually, like the biggest hate blockbuster ever made is kind of remarkable.
that
And,
is
and
interesting.
to nuke his own career, maybe he thought everyone would love it. I don't know, but it looks
Yeah.
almost like a personal career bomb. Let's get some cred with the art guys
I
by
can see that.
completely,
I'll have to.
shredding Warner
You
Brothers
just
money.
convinced me to actually go watch it now. I might have to
Yeah,
do that.
I can't promise it's a good time, but I can promise it's not the time you anticipate it to
Joaquin
be.
Joaquin Phoenix is a weapon. You have to use him very specifically, right? Like you point him in a direction and he says, "All right, I'm going to be there 200%." Like it doesn't once he's on, like did you see Beau is Afraid? Like that's barely
Yeah,
a movie to me. I like Ari Aster, but that film is it's not even a movie. It's just
I
but
agree. Yeah.
he has such a power. Joaquin is such a powerful weapon to point towards those neuroses. You're just like, you're gonna get the guy who can do that all
Yeah,
the
and
way,
I think
which is
Napoleon
why Joker is interesting.
hugely misinterpreted film Napoleon
Yes,
because
yes,
they do
yeah.
get Joaquin and they do use him as a weapon and point him, but people just thought, oh, they didn't get the great man of history actor. Whoops,
No, it's that Ridley
that wasn't
Scott
a
thinks
mistake.
Napoleon was a chump. Like
Yeah, yeah,
he thinks
and the
that this is a
nice
despicable failure of a man.
Yeah, it's a takedown. And the nice
Yeah.
thing about it is that secretly it had massive PTA rewrites. And when you start thinking about it as a pseudo
Oh,
PTA film,
wow.
suddenly it unlocks in a way. Because it's not a
Yes,
straight PTA, it's got another screenwriter, but he came in and did
I
because
didn't realize
Joaquin
that.
himself said,
Yeah,
look, we got to do
yeah.
some work here. I know a guy. It's Paul Thomas Anderson. He can whip the script up a little bit. But
That's
see it like that as
interesting.
one of these kind of dominating, pathetic figures of
Yeah,
history.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And suddenly you're
Supposedly,
starting to see it.
supposedly Killers of the Flower Moon, also a
No,
PTA
that
rewrite.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty
Which
sure,
once
He's
I
highly
good
once I
at
saw that, I
confident.
was like,
poisoning your
yeah.
spouse movies. He's very good at them. Yeah, a
Would
great
yeah,
genre, Notorious. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
I'm really hugely,
Gaslight, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and maybe we can because you said that PTA has yet to become hugely influential. It's still too early, but he's actually planting his own influence by just ghostwriting his descendants.
That's true. That's
I'll
absolutely
print
true.
myself on this American cinema if I got to write every single
Yeah.
one myself. The only one
I
I think that we got other than that is maybe the brutalist. I think the brutal it has a different ethos. It goes in a different
yes.
direction, but
Yeah,
it's
it
structured as one
has
of those kind of mid-budget, huge
Chamber
figure.
piece, three characters, but it's about all of
Yeah,
America.
yes, it has Wells and PTA and a few other things on its mind for sure. And I almost think it works.
Yeah, the
I think that
performances kind
film
of hold.
my bon
Yeah.
mot about that was that I it succeeds despite its ambitions. Like
mm.
it raises itself above its own kind of desperate need to be important.
Hmm.
Well,
And
it
it
almost the
works.
importance is kind of the weapon. I mean, this was my take that it uses all because it was made for like a ludicrously small amount of money,
Right,
but it
right.
exploits the grammar of sort of the great American novel and the great American film. And I think the great American film is something that Paul Thomas Anderson is specifically encoding this kind of
Yep.
this huge
Yep.
figure and using CinemaScope and this
Yeah.
particular, Vista
Yeah,
Vision,
yeah.
all of this
VistaVision,
stuff.
yeah.
Um, in order to give it a sense of the grandiose. And then the
Hmm.
whole film is about this guy building this grandiose church
Hmm.
structure for certain reasons, and everyone loves this grandiose church structure. But in the end, actually, turns
It's
out this whole
yeah,
thing, it
It's
was a gag. It was like,
private.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a
yeah, yeah,
personal
yeah,
yeah.
story thing.
it
Yeah.
was secretly a sort of my personal Holocaust by dimension. That is what this always was. You have been lured into this grand notion of a
Hmm.
narrative of the country,
Hmm.
and you've been fooled by me, who wanted to make a Holocaust memorial with all the Americans' big bucks. And so there's the mystery of the film, or the misdirection of the film,
Hmm.
is in fact it's part of the text.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
it is a misdirection. You fell for it. You know,
Yeah,
it's not a church.
I think Kobe and Fast Food might be great at some point. I do think that's possible for them. But it's the game playing is what has to pass, right? Like the fact that it is a kind of joke, gag, works for that film, but at the end of the day, it is kind of still just a gag.
Hmm.
Did I watch a movie or did I watch a joke? I don't know. I think it works better insofar as it works as the former rather than as the latter. Do I object to the joke? No, not necessarily. It's thoughtful,
Mm.
but I think they may be great at some point. I do think working with Hanukkah rubbed off on Brady. I
Mm.
think he's got a lot of that on the mind.
Gotta, yeah, gotta have their punch drunk love moment, their weird
Yeah,
gateway.
he's
Yeah,
got to. You
yeah,
got
yeah.
to.
What's
Yeah,
your
Now,
but
what's your
one thing.
ideal possible film, Sam? What's the best that this medium could possibly do? What's the best possible film?
I only know my own personal things, which is I worship and adore the kind of the great French New Wave films and the great Italian films of the late 50s, the post-neorealist Italian films, the great Antonioni, Visconti, Fellini films, and Bergman. That that era, the late 50s, the 60s, as the post-war transitions into a sort of dream experiment in the European cinema. I love that stuff so much. I think it's just incredible. If I ever make a movie, it would be more like that. It would have Fellini and Truffaut and Godard and Agnes Varda on its mind. I still think that that lies sort of untapped by the current cinema. I think we've forgotten some of what made that so interesting and important. Like we've forgotten Antonioni. I don't mean literally. He's still, people can watch those movies and get why it's great, but he's not so present as an influence. Same with Fellini. I think they are influences insofar as there's somebody like
You're
Lynch,
influenced by somebody who's influenced by
that
them. Yeah,
remove. But I think there will be a discovery of that European post-war cinema. I
yeah.
also think I think if there's like an ideal film, I think it might just be the Red Shoes, man. Like it might just be Powell and
Yeah.
Pressburger. I mean, that feels like to me the moment at which cinema really realizes we can do everything
Hmm.
with this. We can make everything that has ever been thought of in all the great high arts prior to this moment.
One of the
Realize it
things
fully on film.
I'm really missing in films is made in the last 20 years, say, is a kind of insane, transcendent,
Hmm.
going for the maximum Paradise
Yeah,
Lost,
yeah, 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 yeah.
universal hubbub thing. I really,
Yes.
I don't know. My ideal film is just one where at some stage a character walks through a portal to the other realms, the realms floating above our own, and we get to look at
Hmm.
them for a good
Hmm.
long time. You get like a good
Yeah,
20
yeah.
minutes of extraplanetary um
Yeah,
just
I
Yeah.
think if Aronofsky was a better filmmaker, he'd be the guy for that. He does try it a
He
few times.
does
End
try
of
it. The
Noah,
Fountain and
the
Noah, he
fountain. Yeah,
tries it.
it's.
Yeah.
But I mean, his recent thing is one of those terrible Tarantino ripoffs we were
Yeah, it really
talking
was.
about.
It's so
Somehow,
sad.
yeah,
yeah.
that was
But he is
total
he's
trash.
yeah. But he's got the
He
beans for it. in
Yeah,
theory, but
talk about
he
a
just
great
didn't have
filmmaker
the.
who just doesn't understand himself at all, you
Yeah.
know?
Although something I really appreciated about the beginning of The Brutalist is that it proved that really the reason films aren't colossal now is nothing to
Mm.
do with economics. It's all to do with self-belief. Because the
Vision.
opening of The Brutalist
It's
made for
astonishing.
nothing. It's a dude on a boat and then the Empire State
Upside
upside down. That's
down.
it.
That
But
was
in that and the
incredible.
music,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
Yeah.
No, no,
swell with
that's
that kind
like,
of
oh my gosh.
this
And
film
But
is
what
this is,
works,
colossal.
but what makes that work so well is pacing and rhythm. And that's another thing that is totally forgotten, I think, in current films, is
uh,
that is a real lack of love for a crescendo, a building up to something, an actual understanding of how to undercut something. This is what makes Eggers interesting. He understands the rhythm of a scene. He understands how to put the scenes in an order to give a contour and a kind of music to whatever's going on. But I think, there is a reason to some degree that when I think of my ultimate films, I do kind of tend to think of the Red Shoes, or I tend to think of great MGM musicals as sort of like choreography is another thing that has been lost.
yeah,
The idea that
100%.
everything
Yeah.
can be so intricately practiced and maneuvered into a graceful whole.
Yeah, the
It's
Busby
not really,
Berkeley,
we
just
don't like that
masses of
anymore.
human beings throwing
Yeah,
themselves all
yeah,
over the
yeah.
place, and it's a flower. Oh, I love the
Hmm.
yeah, and just so I love the way that musicals sort of end up achieving more than they're setting out to do.
Yes.
In musicals, so often you get transcendence in the midst of kitsch, in the midst of
Yes,
some
absolutely.
ridiculous plot device. The bit in Singing in the Rain, we're in Broadway Melody, we're about 12 minutes in, and
Yeah,
then we have a
yeah.
dream within the dream that's a guy, like the film has completely forgotten what it's
And
about,
that
and
also might be
we're
the
on a
best movie ever made.
runway, we're on a
That's up
runway
there.
in the sky at
Yes.
sunset with this
Yeah.
infinite dress,
Yeah.
and no, it's like, oh
Sid
my,
Charisse.
yeah, it's Charisse and June Kelly on this on
Oh,
the way this
yeah.
runway set looks, and no one on Singing in the Rain is thinking in big Miltonic Bloomian terms, but they
Hmm.
achieve it more thoroughly than I think any film ever made. I think all the
Yes.
best bits in like the most pretentious, brilliant films, like the end of any of the Tarkovsky films,
Mm.
they equal Singing in the Rain. They don't
Yes.
surpass it. I think the
No,
singing, there's
no.
even just the title track in Singing in the Rain is a non sequitur of just
Yes.
sheer glee in being. It
Yeah.
doesn't get the plot moving. It's
That's
just
what
sheer
works.
music. And maybe one of the things that makes PTA's films so exciting is that they're edited to the score. He has the Johnny Green because but the blessed Johnny
Yes.
Greenwood can't
It's great.
write music for the film. He's just unable to
Hmm.
score. He doesn't have that classical
Hmm.
background.
Hmm.
It means he has to deliver the track, and then Anderson has to cut around the track, which
Hmm.
means
Hmm.
that, especially in the films where Greenwood scores are most rapturous and swelling,
Yes.
the film
Yes.
becomes rapturous
It
and
becomes a
swelling.
dance.
Yeah, I watched
Yeah.
Phantom Thread last night, actually. That
Mm.
opening shot going up the staircase and
Yeah.
the heavy light coming from above. Yeah, it swells with that so gorgeously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Johnny Greenwood's best score, man. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It
So
has
good.
that Spitfire audio soft piano sound a bit too much for
I know
me.
exactly I know exactly the one that you're talking about. I think I used that exact plugin for a while.
Yeah,
Um,
it's quite an addictive plugin. You get to
yeah, it
sound like
is.
Phantom Thread.
You
Yeah,
do.
the two bits where the music, like every time that do 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 main melody
Hmm.
comes in is
Hmm.
wonderful, and also the bit when the highlight of the film for me, both times I saw it when it came out, saw it again last night, is
Hmm.
the mother's ghost. The
Mm.
music at the ghost scene,
Yeah.
really you're stepping through into
Mm.
another kind of realm when you see the ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's visionary.
yeah.
And I think that's what makes PT so interesting. Now, we still have not talked about the fourth. I don't know how much time we have, but we still haven't talked about
We kind
Malik.
of yeah. Let's talk about Malik.
I
Get a bit
wanted
of
to ask
Malik in
you
there.
guys, does he seem characteristically American to un-American eyes and ears? Because
I've got
for
a kind
me,
of
he
double.
seems kind
Yeah,
of universal, like he just kind of passes out of culture,
I
right?
think
yeah.
there's his
Badlands
subject. I
and
mean,
Days of Heaven, the early ones are
yeah,
very
these
American.
Yes,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are terrible.
Americana,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, his later style, I wouldn't necessarily look at it and think, an American filmmaker
Yeah.
has just produced. Even like Tree of Life is very much suburban America. Well,
Hmm.
not even suburban, just way out there.
Hmm.
But it's he does. I think he's pointing at the universal, and he has his European education to help him out.
Yeah. Heidegger.
Uh, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hilarious that a
Yeah.
filmmaker has just been penned to a single specific philosopher with such ferocity as
I
Malik. You
know.
cannot
I know.
read about Malik, but that all film scholars have only read one philosopher, and they've read him for one reason, which is to talk about Malik. I think we've made a
Uh,
terrible mistake somewhere along the line, but it's curious the way in which fine we have the universal Malik man
yeah.
as he may want to be. I mean, especially that last one, A Hidden Life, really trying to remove
It's the one
itself
I haven't
from
seen. That's the one I
yeah,
haven't seen.
missing out big time.
Oh, I
That he's
know.
back because
Yeah.
he regretted a little bit. He was trying to find a new realm. He was trying to get rid of scripts, get rid of
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of
I mean,
the
but they're
Hollywood
interesting
activity.
experiments. They're just worth
Exactly.
your time.
And then in a sort and I guess that is a kind of anxiety of influence in the biggest
Hmm.
sense of like structural influence. How are we
Hmm.
making movies and why? But then sort of escaping that hidden life returns to a more I mean it's still Malikian, but a scripted drama, characters, beginning,
Hmm.
middle, end. We're going somewhere. And it's spectacular. I mean, there are shots in the clouds where you feel you are getting that slightly Jack Pedder dream somewhere else. Let's reach out, find the other thing and look at
Yeah.
it with
Yeah.
eyes. But the curious thing about his many imitators is I think almost all of Malik's actual concerns have completely vanished, even aesthetically.
I
Um,
don't think
what,
anybody's done anything productive with his influence, frankly.
yeah, I think the
Like
current
Tarantino, all like fake Malik is
Yeah.
abominable shit.
It's a cottage industry, you
Yeah.
know.
yeah, and the current master of fake
It's
Malik,
Hamnet and it's
yeah, exactly. I was going to say
Train Dreams and
Chloe Zhao. She
yeah.
is Train Dreams as well, but Chloe Zhao is sort of the one who's made
Yeah.
it her image, and it's a
Hmm.
particular style because now it's not just one riff, but she's done it 3 or 4 movies in a row, and I
Hmm.
quite like the one with the cowboy and the horse. Maybe on
She's a
revisit,
talented person.
yeah,
She has some
but
sight to her.
Nomadland, especially at the time, Einaudi seemed like excellent scoring because it really defines what that film
Mm.
is. It's like a sort of perfect accompaniment, and maybe you're lighter on Nomadland than I am, but Hamner again, it's picking up a kind of floatiness and an appeal to the universal human
Yeah.
story, but it's nothing like Malik. It really
No,
is
no,
Forgets to
it's
put a
not.
not.
dinosaur in it. You know, like
Yeah,
you
a
need the
merciful
dinosaur.
Well, it
The
doesn't
dinosaur,
even
a
merciful
understand.
dinosaur
the
that
merciful dinosaur.
It doesn't even understand Shakespeare, so we can't even, but that's a whole other thing. No, the Malick influence is at this point so rote.
Well,
It
I
hasn't
think
produced
actually
anything.
the first time I encountered Malik probably was in the parody film in Mr. Bean's Holiday.
Oh
This
yeah,
we have caught
yeah.
I don't
with
know
Willem
that.
Dafoe. He's just like he plays a character who just seems to keep repeating his own name in this kind of airy montage of
Hmm.
kind of artsy looking, and
Yeah,
it's very mid-period Terrence Malick. And at
that's
the time,
funny.
I was like, this is the comically artistic bad film, pretentious film has
You
been,
know,
but really it's imitating the imitators.
yeah, well, I think the biggest way that Malick has been transmuted into the contemporary cinema is through Nolan. I think Christopher
Mm.
Nolan is a complete misunderstanding of Malick at every level. And that doesn't mean that Nolan can't produce some pretty good movies. It just feels like a complete misunderstanding and retooling of the Malick
So
approach.
what are you thinking about in particular? Like what is the Nolan
I
receptacle to
think
Malick
I think he
source?
has the same concept as sort of ultimate montage. Um, Nolan can't frame a scene, really. It doesn't have much of an idea of mise en scène, really. He doesn't have
Mm.
anything except the propulsion of that forward movement. I mean, every one of his films exists in the edit only, really.
Yeah.
Once you get that music going to it, then they can just like push forward and it's sort of a constant crescendo until the end. Particularly with his most personal movies like Interstellar and Inception and I don't even know what Tenet was. I don't. whatever. But
The greatest film ever made.
uh, no, but I mean, and Oppenheimer is his best because it is one of
Whoa.
the few
Whoa.
that because it actually has some like history and weight to it. It is still sort of a misunderstanding of Malick, I think. It is it's just it's he wants to achieve the same kind of sense of like total montage where time shifts forward from an almost cosmic point of view because we're not really lingering on individual story like scenes. And yet he's done it in such a way that he's constantly yoked that attempt at a Malick style to a kind of mechanism, a, a, a machine-like script every time that makes it kind of an exhausting, pointless affair a lot of the time.
You really
Doesn't
learn
mean
a
it's
lot
not
about Oppenheimer's
good.
security clearance. You, yeah, you really
He's
get to,
just
if you're curious about
I don't
that.
know.
Whoa.
Nolan is the most influential
Yeah.
of contemporary directors.
That's true. Yeah,
And
he's a
it's
big.
just and that's
Yeah.
not a good thing necessarily. Like it really is he
Uh,
really is kind of empty.
yeah, it takes the greatest ideas anyone has ever had and turns them into total dross. I mean, Inception, my God, what an... we're going to plan a paper windmill representing the highest possible good into the deepest layer of a man's soul. And the only way of getting there is to go 3 dreams deep into his
Is to have a
soul.
fist fight in a hallway.
And go to like the Oedipal core of his father's deathbed at the deepest place of his soul and put a paper windmill in a safe. The most beautiful, incredible, like, what an idea for a film. And it's like, how do you make it shit? It's
He
incredible.
can't
It's
stop
like,
making superhero movies.
yeah, I
He
like,
can't stop it. I mean, it was even there in Oppenheimer, that shot where like it's the music goes and it zooms in on the hat and the pipe sitting on the table of just like superhero icons. Like it's
yeah,
just the same thinking. He doesn't differentiate.
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, easy to
It's
forget.
the
He
same
he
thing.
designed the grammar of the modern superhero film with
yeah,
the
of
Batman film.
course.
Of
Yeah,
course.
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
that was him.
He
Yeah.
took
Before him,
over.
The
superhero
first
films
Sam
were all
Raimi, it's a completely different,
Well, now we've gone back to
and the
Spider-Man
Bryan Singer
all the
X-Men's.
way.
It's like a very different kind
Yeah, it
of
he
is.
he recodified it. One side
Mhm.
went the Zack Snyder kind of fascist art,
Yeah,
Riefenstahl
yeah, yeah,
kid.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
moments of. I think he would have done great in fascist Italy. He does well enough today, but he would have really, if he
Yeah.
was a statue maker on one of those kind of neo
If
fascist
you
art,
could,
I
yeah,
think he would have been
if you could
wonderful.
call any artist fascist without suggesting that like that's a complete pejorative thing, it's just like a
then Lenny
genre,
Riefenstahl.
then
No
it's right,
pejorative. It's just
Zack
Riefenstahl.
Snyder.
But it's also but Zack Snyder is a fascist artist. But it's just like that
Not
doesn't
in a bad
not in
way.
a
I don't
bad
no,
want
no,
to
come
way.
hurt
on,
the guy's
guys.
feelings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
whoa,
Like
whoa,
we know
whoa. C300.
we like Led Zeppelin here.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, so then you have that's the extreme route, but then also the Marvel stuff as well. It's taking the more serious, more straight laced. Because if we remember, early Marvel films did away with the secret identity stuff.
mhm,
They did away with that slightly hokey kind of high school hero. They were more
mhm,
like, what if the heroes existed in real life? And you know,
mhm.
it's heightened, it's jokey, it's jovial. But the Batman Begins Dark Knight thing was to say, well, what if Batman really did exist?
yes.
What would
Gritty.
he be like? And
Gritty realism sort of
exactly,
and grounded.
and I think yeah,
Ra's
it's true
al
that
Ghul,
has
what a character.
doesn't need to save him. Technically,
Technically doesn't.
I do like Batman Begins a lot.
Yeah, it's got Ra's al Ghul.
It got Ra's
Fan
al Ghul. It
favorite.
doesn't
got
have to save
Raz.
him.
But I
I
think
am
Dark
talking
Knight
about
is
the Ra's al Ghul, like, dummy, not Liam Neeson.
Ken Watanabe.
Yeah,
Precisely.
two great characters.
Mysterious Asian man. Complete Oriental cipher.
Yeah. I loved that guy. I thought
Very
I
compelling.
want to be like
Very
I want to be like
compelling.
him.
Oh man. No, I mean, well, to take it all the way back, I mean, Spider-Man 2 is the best superhero movie, you know?
That's an
It
idea.
really
Yeah, yeah.
is.
It's an idea. It's me and Milo made a list of like greatest performances in cinema history, and Milo's did include Simmons in Spider-Man. It
It,
was
it was a joint award with Whiplash, but I think we can't discount the Spider-Man work,
Interesting.
which is
yeah.
perfect. That
Mm.
character, he lives in my brain forever. Not because I was a child when first exposed, but because it is Miltonic glory.
Yeah.
I think we should
Well,
clear that up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, to speak of, there is the PTA influence, I will say, I have seen it in, speaking of Whiplash, Chazelle is a bit
Mm.
of a post derivative of PTA at times. That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Babylon.
yeah, I
Yeah.
never saw Babylon. I feel like I'm the
It's a
target
terrible
audience.
movie.
Like
Yeah.
even if it's bad, I still feel I should be the one watching it.
You
Yeah.
might
It's
like it.
like,
I have no idea, but it's I
if someone
thought
makes
it's
this
awful.
movie for, risks their career on it and then I don't show up, then
Yeah,
I can't
That's
yeah.
really,
complain.
yeah,
Then
yeah.
who
Like
was
I
it
can't
for?
exactly.
Megalopolis for me and Milo, and we go and see it. But
Yeah, showed
Babylon,
up.
yeah, we showed
Yeah,
up.
I missed
Megalopolis, saw it twice.
yeah. We've done our bit.
What book would you add to the Bible, Sam? It's in the canon. Every church in the world, just it
you
passes all the
mean does it
councils.
have to be like of the kind of wisdom or religious writing that would fit in
No.
with
That's up
the
to
older New
you. You can
Testament?
go like complete like
Yeah.
non sequitur like or you can the script for Terminator 2, anything you like.
It will
Well,
be
you
canon,
know,
whatever you say. So it
well,
will redefine religious writing.
uh, I just read The Magic Mountain, and I think that might be the best novel I've ever read, so I'm going to put that in there.
Yeah, lovely speaking to you, Sam. I look forward to editing this chaos.
Yeah, it's great
Yeah,
to
yeah,
meet both of you guys.
yeah. Send along your novel.
Ooh,
Is
okay.
it what's it going? Is it like a novel? Is it like
Yeah,
characters,
yeah,
scenes,
absolutely. Yeah.
chapters?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very kind of mid-century American novel. It's very Pinchonian in some ways, but it's sort of like a paranoid. It's like my attempt to do the last 10 years of paranoid uh young America, like the millennials on college campuses going nuts with conspiracies and drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like a good time for. I feel like the yeah pinch on in the Alex Jones cosmos that we are within
Yeah,
would be yeah.
it's very Pinchonian times.
See you
Thank you
around, Sam.
guys.
It was a
Yeah, take
lovely
care of
time. Thanks for
yourselves.
taking all
Farewell.
the
Very good.
time. Yeah. Ciao,
Peace out.
ciao.